That's
never
a
good.
problem.
That's
yeah,
never
it didn't
good.
end well for Pence. And now look who he's not endorsing.
Well, I would argue it ended very well for Mike Pence, in that Mike Pence has spoken up and he's spoken out, and I'm very proud of him for doing it. And my gosh, you look at January the 6th. I will say, I want the statue. I don't care where it is. I want the statue of Dan Quayle with his hand on Mike Pence's shoulders. Because let me tell you, in an incredible footnote in American history, Mike Pence calls Dan Quayle, and Dan puts down the putter, goes, can't do it, Mike. Can't do it. And Mike goes, well, what about? And Dan Quayle says, no. You got no choice, man.
Yep.
You got to do it. I'm serious. Yeah. It's crazy, but these are moments.
Great story.
These are moments that actually matter.
That's an extraordinary phone call that you can read about if you go online. Another thing I'll say about Mike Pence, for all the criticisms we've had over the years, there have been so many Republicans who, in a moment when they needed to, criticize Donald Trump, and then when it was clear he was going to be the nominee, said, well, he's got his flaws, but I'm going to support the nominee. See Nikki Haley, see everybody else. Mike Pence says, I'm sitting this one out. I can't vote for Donald Trump. I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden or Vice President Harris. He might write in his mom or somebody else, but he says, I'm not voting for Donald Trump, the guy who served for 4 years.
Yeah.
So. And the gallows were brought out for him.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump's former chief of staff, speaking of his staff, retired Marine General John Kelly, criticized the former president's recent comments where he claimed the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which honors civilians, was, quote, much better than the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration given to U.S. service members for valor. Here is what Donald Trump said last week.
I have to say, Miriam, I watched Sheldon sitting so proud in the White House when we gave Miriam the Presidential Medal of Freedom. That's the highest award you can get as a civilian. It's the equivalent of the Congressional Medal of Honor, but civilian version. It's actually much better because everyone gets the Congressional Medal of Honor. That's soldiers. They're either in very bad shape because they've been hit so many times by bullets, or they're dead. She gets it, and she's a healthy, beautiful woman. It's right.
Actually gets worse every time you hear it.
So
General
bad.
Kelly tells CNN, quote, the Medal of Honor is earned, not won, by incredibly brave actions on the battlefield under fire, typically by very brave young men who joined when others did not to defend their country. He added, the two awards cannot be compared in any way, not even close, no equivalency of any kind, end quote. This is not the first time Kelly has clashed with Trump, of course, over the sacrifice of American service members. Last year, General Kelly confirmed reports, which originally appeared in The Atlantic back in 2020, that during his presidency, Trump did not want to visit a cemetery in France for Americans who fought and died in World War I because it was filled with, quote, suckers and losers. So Trump's latest comments, just part of a pattern of ways he feels and clearly expresses out loud that he just doesn't understand the sacrifice of our military.
And you know,
he wouldn't, because he didn't.
Right. And I will say, Caddy, the shocking thing is not that Donald Trump says these things. The shocking thing is that people that once revered service, people that once revered the flag, people that once revered American patriotism, people that once revered all of those qualities, are now lining up behind Donald Trump, someone who routinely mocks it, somebody who, as General Kelly said, didn't want to go to a graveyard in France because the people who died were suckers and losers, and you know, the list goes on, and I've talked about it again. I mean, you know, Donald Trump says again repeatedly that this country is in decline, that this is a failing nation, that this is a stupid nation. It's the antithesis of what Republicans have been talking about since Ronald Reagan first took the nomination in 1980.
Yeah, it's certainly not the shining city on the hill language, and it's not American leadership around the world. I can't tell you, Joe, I'm sure how much what's happening here is being watched in countries, particularly among America's allies, who are worried about what they hear from Donald Trump. And when he talks about the U.S. military in that way, when he talks about U.S. leadership with this implication that U.S. leadership is somehow failing or is redundant or that America can't lead, that it's a country in decline, that worries America's allies. That makes them start thinking, should we be looking at somewhere else? Should we be looking to China, perhaps? If we're going to get a president of this country who doesn't believe that America can lead or should lead or wants to lead or is a country in decline, that message of decline keeps permeating and makes people start thinking in other countries, you know what, maybe actually we'll throw our lot in with China after all. Of course, we should remind people that there are numerous members of Donald Trump's administration, senior cabinet figures who have refused to come out and endorse him, who won't be voting for him and won't be endorsing him. And I think that's a message as well that voters could take.